Welcome to Governing Ourselves, a libertarian atheist podcast. I'm Adam.
And I'm Lisa, and we're here to talk about religion and politics, life, the universe, and everything in between.
But one of those major themes in between this week is fatherhood.
Yes, we want to do a special episode this week where we talk about fathers for Father's Day.
I want to point out that this was Lisa's idea, okay? And so that we didn't do a Mother's Day thing is not my fault. I mean, it is, but it's not like I ignored Mother's Day and then suggested Father's Day.
No, and I didn't do that either. No, I thought of it. Actually, I think my husband thought of it. So we were trying to work out our schedule. Like, I asked my husband if he wanted to do something special for Father's Day, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's coming up, isn't it?" So we were just talking, and I was, asking him, do you want to do what we usually do, where he takes the kids out somewhere while we record, or if you'd like us to skip that week? And then he thought of, what if you guys do an episode about Father's Day, about fathers? And I thought about it, and I was like, I think we could do that. I'm not sure how it, applies to atheism or libertarianism. And then he was like, well, there's, it has some economic repercussions, kids who grew up without fathers.
Sure.
There's the welfare state, which is something that libertarians want to get rid of. Yeah. So, yeah, fathers have a big impact on our economy and on society and on families.
Yeah, having them has a big impact. Not having them has a big impact. I mean, libertarians should definitely care about the drug war. Hopefully atheists do too. The drug war is responsible for the breakup of the black family. And, because of that, it's almost like a meme that young black men, and girls, grow up without dad around, right? Because dad's in prison. And so you should be very concerned about the drug war and its impact on families. If you care about family and you really think that, traditional family values are the best way to run a society and you believe in the family unit, then you should oppose non-violent drug offenders, going to jail.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not just that. It actually starts with the welfare state. Yeah, specifically with the black community, but others as well. When kids grow up without a father in the house, not having a father in the house actually causes negative effects. One of them is higher instances of drug use.
Right.
Kids are more likely to use and abuse drugs if there's no father in the home. Barack Obama was quoted as saying, "A kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail." And the welfare state is largely responsible for that.
Yeah.
Something that I watched a video by Larry Elder. He is a talk show host. He's a lawyer. And he talked about, this video was from February of 2019. The title of the video is called Black History Month and Number One Issue Plaguing Black Americans. And he said that a lot of it was the war on poverty. In the 1960s, President Lyndon Johnson sent welfare workers to the black community, door to door, and telling women that they would qualify for welfare provided there was no man in the house.
Oh my God.
There was no father in the house. And so that incentivized women to marry the government. And it allowed men, according to Larry Elder, it allowed men to abandon their financial and moral responsibilities.
Right. And Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this too, right? Where he talks about, responsibility being very important to not just fathers, but to men in general, right? And that when we feel useless, when we feel like we don't really have a place, then we tend to retreat. Right? So because men aren't as agreeable on aggregate, when things aren't going well, men tend to kind of cross their arms and say, I'm not playing, right? And so what happens? Okay, so they, go into video games a lot, or, especially if sexual life isn't working out, relationships are too difficult, they can retreat into pornography. And what was the other thing? Oh, yeah, like alcoholism, drug use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the worst thing you can do to a man, basically, is make him feel useless, right?
Yeah, that's what the welfare state has largely done, is it's given women money, and so the women say, we don't need you. We're being taken care of by the government. We don't need you. And so men are like, okay, well, bye. How many men are going to stick around when their woman, the mother of their children, is saying, I don't need you. We don't need you. We'll be just fine because of the government.
Yeah, well, I would say they should anyway, because that's their responsibility. But, are they going to? That's a different question, right? Because we're not always going to act rationally. We're going to act emotionally. And, in a lot of those cases, if you don't think it's a difference between life and death for your children, then you might choose the easier route, right? For me, the idea of walking out on my children is unthinkable. I can't get there,
But what if your wife said, we don't need you?
So I know that this is a weird person to quote, but probably the best television show ever created is Breaking Bad. And one of the bad guys, actually, his name's Gus Fring. Okay, so the context of this quote is that Walter, the protagonist slash antagonist, is trying to get out of the meth game, and his boss, the guy he works for, is trying to keep him in, and so he appeals to Walter's sense of responsibility and duty. Right. So what do you do when your question was, what do you do when your wife says, I don't need you around? This is the response. A man provides, and he does it even when he's not appreciated or respected or even loved. He simply bears up, and he does it because he's a man. And I know that he said that in an attempt to manipulate Walter, but
so context aside,
I wrote that down. I kept track of it. I think I posted it in Facebook one day because that really resonated with me. You're right. It's not about being loved. It's not about what you get, right? It's about who you. I mean, I guess it is about what you get to a degree, because you need to be able to respect yourself. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. And, if you don't do these things for, people that depend on you, then you're useless. Then you're in hell, right? Like, that's the worst thing. So, no, this is not about the love or anything. This is about doing what is going to give your life meaning. God, that just really resonated with me.
Yeah, and Jordan Peterson's mentioned that a lot in his book. We both read 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was something that you really liked about what he wrote.
Yeah, he says that for men, there is nothing but responsibility, which I know is a very bold claim, right? But man, I really get that, because, if you seek out other things, right? If you seek out, fun or pleasure or whatever as your main goal, it will result in essentially a form of self-loathing. You won't care about yourself. And, that's part of where we see these high suicide rates nowadays, right? Particularly from men.
Do you find that that's true, what he says? Because men and women are different. We think differently. And as a woman, that doesn't sound right. But maybe, as a man speaking to another man, is he correct?
Well, I think we're definitely different, right? And what we're going to get out of life are going to be two different things, right?
Right.
Or I think for women, it's like 100 million things. And for men, we very much like to boil everything down. So it's a big statement that means a lot of things, right? So, but I 100% think it's true. Because I've done it. Like, I've done the retreats, into the pleasures of life. And it does not make you like yourself. It does not give you joy. It doesn't give you a sense of satisfaction. Happiness is it's very fleeting, and it doesn't stick around very long. You, enjoy it when it comes, right? That's something that Peterson says, but you can't rely on that. It's something that doesn't last. But that sense of feeling useful and of achieving your responsibility is, I think, at least speaking for myself, is the only thing that really gives me meaning and satisfaction.
Yeah.
What little I can do. I wish I could provide more for my family. I wish I could protect them better. And I'm limited by my skills and natural capacity. But that doesn't mean, I should stop trying or doing everything that I possibly can do.
Yeah. It's been shown that when a father is there, when he's actively involved in his children's life, both sons and daughters benefit. But when there's no father in the home, it's different if the father has died versus if he was never there or if he left. It's hard on daughters and sons, but it's much harder on the sons.
Yeah.
Especially if the father left, because then children are left with this sense of being abandoned.
Yeah.
And it takes a higher toll on sons when fathers are not there. And, another thing that Larry Elder pointed out is that right now, the percentage of Black children raised without fathers is about 75%.
Wow. Holy crap.
About 75% of Black kids are raised without fathers. Right now, almost 50% of Hispanic kids are raised without fathers. And about 25% of white kids are raised without fathers. Those numbers are huge.
That is totally insane.
But those are the statistics. And it takes a huge toll.
So, as a woman, since you asked me a man question, but as a woman, don't you feel like, you're a strong, independent woman that don't need no man, right? Can't you do all of this by yourself? Right?
I can't be a father.
Right, but can't you provide the things that a father provides, right? Isn't
No.
gender just a construct?
No.
Okay.
It's not so much about what I can and can't do. It's more about what my kids need. It's more about what I could bring versus what a father could bring. Fathers and mothers play differently with their children. Men are more likely to be, engaged in rough and tumble play.
Yes.
They're more likely to be physical with their kids. They're more likely to roughhouse. And that's good for kids. Daughters, but especially sons. You learn a lot about limits when you do that. Mothers don't generally play with their kids that way.
No, not generally.
Boys communicate different than girls do. And so as a mother, I'm more likely to understand my daughter than my son.
Sure.
When they're young, when they're maybe under 10 or so, it's pretty similar. But as the kids get older, boys and girls develop differently. They communicate differently. They think differently. And I'm more likely to understand how my daughter is thinking than my son, even if I know my son very, very well, and even if we get along very well. So, no, there's a lot I can do. I mean, yes, I could take care of my kids' basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, love and attention. But no, I can't be everything that a father could be. There's something about men that boys identify with in a way that they don't identify with their mothers.
And I think daughters also benefit from both genders,
They do.
pretty heavily, right? Like, what kind of man that a girl might end up with could reflect a lot on her dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also a saying that's like whatever a man does, for his daughter is like basically a big effort to keep her off the pole, right?
Off the stripper pole?
Right, exactly,
Oh.
Right. Because
I haven't heard that before, but
right.
Okay.
Or if like they're on there, then there's probably a terrible dad in the background, right? So definitely, I think either way, and this is not to say that mothers are not useful. They certainly are just as useful, if not more so. But we're doing Father's Day.
Yeah, and fathers are important. the statistics show, even if you just look at the hard numbers, having a father in the home makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a big difference. I don't want to devalue the single mother, right? But I think it's very safe to say there are advantages to having two parents. There are advantages to having them be different from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to mention stepfathers really quick.
Yeah.
I think stepfathers are going to have more of a challenging time. Because especially as their stepchild gets older, they're probably going to want to know who their biological father was.
Yeah.
Teenagers kind of go through a rough time anyway.
Right.
It can be rough when the child's trying to find out who they are and they don't know who half of them is.
Right.
They don't know who their father is. They don't know what parts of themselves come from him.
Yeah.
And so, the stepfather may be doing a great job with the kids, trying to do their best, but they may have an extra challenge because the child is going to be going through a little harder time. Same thing with adoptive parents. If both parents have adopted a child, whether they're heterosexual couples or same-sex couples, the child, probably when they become a teenager, they're trying to figure out who they are. And they're going to have a much harder time if they don't know who they came from.
Yeah.
And so, same thing, the child might lash out. They may try to, push their adoptive parents to test them. I've heard that happens with children who've been adopted. They can push their adoptive parents, trying to test them to see if they will leave them too. Just dealing with the whole abandonment issue. And that can take years to get through. And it can be really hard. But, if the parents just stick with it, then eventually it'll work out okay. Hopefully. The best thing you can do is just try to be a good parent. Try the best that you can. And family therapy can be a big help with that.
Right.
And yeah, with same-sex couples, having same-sex couples with children, that hasn't been happening very long. And so there isn't a whole lot of data on how those kids, how they fare. Some people say that it's fine, and others say, it would be better if there were a female and a male parent involved. And that's something that Jordan Peterson's gotten a lot of flack for, is his advocating mother and father, the nuclear family.
Right. And I would say I highly support, same-sex couples adopting children because two parents are better than none. Let's definitely get kids out of the system and into families, right?
Yes.
Allowing people to adopt that want to, because just that desire in the first place, that it isn't everybody, No,
it's
so
not.
That's probably going to be, you have two people that really want to adopt, that are really interested in being parents. These are the guys that are probably going to read up on it, that are going to do the research, that are going to make sure you get all your shots. Anyway, yeah, they're going to be a lot more interested and probably a lot more up on the child's needs.
Yep. Yeah. There's a gal who I mentioned in one of the last episodes. Her name is Sarah Hayter, and she's one of the co-founders of Ex-Muslims of North America. And a couple years ago, I watched an interview that she did with Dave Rubin, where it was like a Skype interview. And he asked Sarah, "What's your story?" She grew up in Pakistan. They moved to America when she was 8. And he asked her, growing up Muslim, how were you able to break away from it? And she gave a lot of credit to her father. She described her father as truly liberal. She said, I still couldn't wear, certain clothing. I couldn't wear shorts in the house. I couldn't have a boyfriend or date. I was still expected to have an arranged marriage. And Dave Rubin's like, so where's the liberal part?
Right.
And she said that he's considered very liberal, not just moderate Muslim, but liberal Muslim, because he let her read books that she wanted to read. She only had to fight for a couple years for them to let her go away to college. She wasn't forced to wear the hijab. She said that she did wear it for a short while, but that was, strictly by choice. It wasn't forced on her. And she said that her father gave her dignity as a woman that isn't given by many Muslim men to their wives and daughters. So he treated her with respect. He gave her honor and dignity as a woman. It's because of that freedom that she had, especially the freedom to read the books that she wanted to read. She read the Quran. She looked at sources outside. She looked on the internet for information. And it was after learning more about what her holy books said that she's like, I don't agree with this. This is not a good religion. No. So now she's not just ex-Muslim. She's also an atheist.
That'll happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unlike Nani Darwish, who we read last time,
right.
Nani converted to Christianity when she moved here. But Sarah Hayder, she was Muslim, but she became an atheist. And, another huge thing, another credit to her father being so liberal, is that she doesn't fear for her life from her father for becoming an apostate. Because under Islam, apostates are to be killed.
Yeah.
That's in the scriptures. That's in Sharia law. Not all people will do that. Not all Muslims are gung-ho for that. But her father, she doesn't have to worry about that from him. She doesn't have to worry about him killing her for family honor. So that's another credit to him, is that he cares more about the honor and dignity and life of his daughter than he does about honor.
Right. So, Peterson talks about that type of father too. Like, what is the dark side? And we do it in different ways. So mothers might do it in the, I'm not going to let anything happen to you, sort of overprotection. And the father might do it in a different way where he's like, I'm never going to let you dominate me, right? I'm never going to let you be better than me. I'm jealous of you. I'm contemptuous of you. Or I'm a tyrant, right? Like,
very authoritarian.
Yeah, the authoritarian parent. So at the same time, he's not going to the other extreme and saying, be your kid's friend, right? He would definitely not say that. So, he advocates, I wouldn't say for a middle position, but, the ultimate thing that he thinks that a father should be is a person who says, shake it off and do something difficult, go do something useful, but I'm here for you and I'm on your side, right? Like, I'm your coach and I'm your leader, but I'm trying to help you be the best possible version of yourself that you can possibly be. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm going to facilitate that by allowing you to basically go out and suffer, because, suffering is going to happen in your life regardless. So you need to be able to discover your limits. So we talked about wrestling briefly. You said you were less likely to wrestle with your children.
Yeah, rough and tumble play.
Yeah, rough and tumble play. So he very much advocates that. In fact, one of the 12 rules is rule number 11, do not bother children while they are skateboarding, right? And the reason he says that is because, skateboarding, like many other physical activities, is sort of rough and tumble, right? It allows kids to discover what their limits are, right?
Yeah, to test the limits, to take risks and see what you can do.
Dads are usually a little better at this, right?
They're a lot better at it. Come on now.
Okay, well,
women are very much about, be careful, don't get hurt,
right.
Take it easy. Dads are like, go ahead. You're fine. Yeah. If you break a bone, we'll take you to the hospital, whatever. But go ahead and do it. So, no, mothers and fathers are very different that way.
Yeah, I just wanted you to say that. instead of me. I've seen my kids land on their heads so many times. Oh. And it freaks me out too. As a father, I still go, oh my God, you can't do that. But they get up, they are so tough, They might not act tough, but I think my wife actually noticed this before I did. Which was when a little kid will fall down, like a 2 or 3 year old, they'll fall down before they start crying. They'll often look up at you.
Yes. And
right?
Depending on your reaction, the kid might cry or the kid might get up and be fine.
Exactly. Right. So she noticed this with her friend, that she would always go, "Oh no, my baby," and then she'd cry hysterically.
Right.
And then my wife started saying, "Oh, fall down," or something like that. Like something silly, like, "Oh, you fell down."
Yep.
And then they would get up and they'd be fine. Maybe they would want a kiss better or something.
Yeah.
But for them, there would not be a connection.
Yeah. A lot of it is because, if they're genuinely hurt, they'll cry no matter what. But a lot of times it's if they get scared. If it startles them, then they look up and it's like, should I be crying about this or is it okay?
That's right.
That's a big difference too.
Right. Because you're the rock, mom and dad, right? Mm-hmm. If you're the one who's scared, they're definitely scared.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think our advice here, guys, is keep together. It's going to be okay.
And fathers, be involved with playing with your kids. They learn a lot from you.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So playtime. So I want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Because Peterson talks about rats, right? So
he also talks about lobsters.
Yeah, he also talks about lobsters, but that's a different thing. So,
we'll cover that when we cover this book in detail.
Right.
So about rats.
So he talks about like they'll watch rats play together and study their play behaviors, right, and their patterns. Mm-hmm. And so there's usually a bigger rat and a smaller rat. Okay. And so the bigger rat can, if he wants to, he can win 100% of the wrestling matches that they'll have, right? Because they'll play fight. Animals do that.
Yeah.
Humans do it too, by the way.
If they're allowed to, it's good for you.
Right. Like little kids, they want to play fight all the time.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay.
But anyway, the big rat will often lose on purpose. They'll lose about a third of the time. Because if they don't do that, then eventually this small rat will stop playing.
Yeah, they'll lose interest because they can never win.
And so, he found that, big rats will sometimes allow themselves to get pinned so that they can keep playing because their desire to play is so high, right? So I've been trying, similar things with my own children because parenthood's been a struggle for me. I would not say I'm the world's greatest father by any means, but I'm trying to get better. So, one thing I notice my kids love, and they will do almost anything to get this. They absolutely love wrestling. They love it so much. Mm-hmm. My girls too. My youngest, she gets so into it.
Oh yeah.
She will run over and just start socking me in the leg or trying to push me over to get me started in a fight with her. Right?
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. But my son needs it. And they all giggle uncontrollably when you do this with them. But if I don't give them an inch, like if I don't let them accomplish anything, they will give up or get frustrated or something like that. But if I count it, I'm like, what? I win, I lose, right?
Okay, so you're actually counting out the 1/3 that you're gonna.
Yeah, I'm basically counting out the 1/3, and
nice,
it makes them play longer. And because they play games, they're like, okay, Dad, you're like running out of hearts, like you have one heart left, It's like, okay, I have one heart left, So then when I go down, and they are so happy when they pin me. All 3 of my kids will get on me and they'll start jumping on my back.
Oh gosh!
And then I'll throw them all off and they'll just laugh uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Because now they went flying and they love that. And then they get back up and they charge at me again. They try to surround me, use pack tactics, all these things. They try to attack from the back all the time. And it's great. It's some of the best time that we have, and it's good for them. And, another thing that Peterson talks about is this is a good place to teach rules because, every now and then your kid will do something against the rules. So they might try to go for the growing and you have to say, please don't hit me there.
Yep. That's off limits. The face is off limits too.
Yeah. Don't hit me in the face. don't pull my hair, don't poke me in the eye, don't bite. Like, that's a big one. Little kids really struggle with that, right? And so if that happens, you give them a warning and you say, if that happens again, we're done. Mm-hmm. And then if it does happen again, you have to stop.
You have to follow through. Yeah. Yep. You can't give empty threats because they'll learn.
Yeah.
They'll learn that when you say something like that, you don't actually mean it.
You got to mean what you say, and that's good for everybody, right?
Yes.
And as a teacher, I struggle with this because, I have a big desire to be the cool teacher, but being the cool teacher does not make you the love teacher. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be a good teacher, kids have got to almost dislike you immediately and then learn to like you later, right? It's like so much better for you. I hate it when you confiscate a phone.
All right.
Some of them like it, I guess.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Some parents or some teachers will do that.
Some of them really. I hate it. I feel like the Gestapo every time I do it. You know what I mean? But you have got to do it. And they will respect you more in the long run. They'll appreciate you more as long as you do it as fairly as you can. And of course, they'll always cry foul with that like you did it to Johnny, but you didn't do it to Jane or whatever. Or you gave him a warning, but you didn't give me a warning. So you got to be as consistent as you can be, but you got to be on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen this both ways in the teaching profession, right? I've seen both men and women struggle. And I struggle in certain ways. Mm-hmm. I have seen guys that are overly authoritarian in the classroom. And so everyone hates them. Right. And it doesn't bounce back into love territory, because there's the teacher you like, there's the teacher you love, and then there's the teacher you hate. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And this also kind of gets into Machiavelli a little bit, where he talks about leadership should be this way. Like, you should be like unapproachably strict, but you can't go into hate territory.
Right.
Right. So
you can't be unfair. You can't be unfair to your students.
You can't be unfair, and you can't be like harsh for its own sake.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, I've seen men be overly authoritative, and so that doesn't work. I've seen them be too soft. I've done it. That's where I sometimes err. And then, your kids might like you, but they don't respect you. They don't love you as deeply as they would. Right? Because kids really do crave discipline. They want someone to tell them.
Yeah, it sounds weird, but it's true. Chaos can be crazy. And it's hard to find where boundaries are if everything's chaotic, if there are no rules. Yeah.
There's a balance of strictness and harshness and of love and compassion. Because we so want to help our children, whether we're teaching them or if they're literally our children. When your kid falls down, you want to pick them up. That's your instinct.
Yeah.
Right? When they're suffering, you want to prevent that suffering. You want to make the suffering end. You wish you could take it on yourself. And while that's noble, it's actually one of the worst things you could do for him. It's actually counterproductive, right? It's ultimately going to make you feel better, but it's not going to suffer. It's not going to like do any good.
Yeah.
Right. It's like what they say, about, butterflies, right? They look like they're struggling to get out of the cocoon, and they are, right? But if you help them, they die. When your kid falls down during rough and tumble play, see if they can just get up, right?
Right.
See if they can just stand up. See if they can dust themselves off.
Yeah.
And don't freak out,
Yeah. And after reading 12 Rules for Life, I don't remember where it is in the book. I'll have to look for it again, but where he specifically talks about rough and tumble play. Yeah. And it's not just Jordan Peterson. I've read other books where they talk about boys specifically, and about fathers and the interaction between the two of them, how rough and tumble play is so important, and as modern parents, we tell our kids, don't roughhouse all the time. It's just something that we as parents do now, but it's actually good for them. And after reading Jordan Peterson's book, I brought it up to my husband and I was like, would you wrestle with our kids? I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think they would like it.
Yeah.
And, I got to tell you, as a mother, so you know how you hear some things like, oh, nothing's sexier than a man who does the dishes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's why I do the dishes.
as a wife, as a mother, no, that doesn't do it for me. But what actually does touch my heart is seeing my husband playing with our kids.
Right. Yeah.
Seeing him take an active interest in our kids. That, it's not sexy. It's heartfelt. It touches my heart.
It's like meaningful.
Yes, absolutely. And that happened last night, actually. I was listening to things preparing for this episode, and I could hear my husband down there, and he's like, okay, you guys ready? Now push. And they're giggling. They're just laughing. I'm like, what are they doing? So I didn't go and look. I just listened. But It sounds like he was just standing there and like bracing himself. And he was telling them to try and push him over. And of course they couldn't do it. But they had a ton of fun doing it. And when I see my husband playing video games with our kids, so, not just giving them a video game and be like, here, go entertain yourself. Yeah. When he's actually playing with them, I like that. I love seeing that he's engaged with our kids, that he likes spending time with them, and that they have so much fun playing with him like that.
That's right. So remember, guys, if you want to get the good ones, right? Like if you want that lady to stay interested in you, show interest in the kids, right?
Yes.
Now, if you can be literally interested in them, even better. But
yeah. Well,
but if
happens.
That's what it takes to get there, right?
It eventually does happen. First, you have to actually put forth the effort, and then it becomes part of you. Then it becomes something you want to do. It becomes something you enjoy doing. But you have to put forth the effort first. It doesn't necessarily come first.
All right. And, again, remember, this is your responsibility.
There you go. Yeah.
It's not about you enjoying it or not, although you will, right? That'll be a lovely side effect. But, like fun and happiness, these are side effects that are desired, right? But your goal has got to be responsibility. It's not the opposite of happiness. It might be the opposite of immediate pleasure, but that's about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's happiness in the long run.
Yeah.
So do what you got to do. Be there for them. Give them their alone time too. They need that. And you certainly need that because you got to get your own life done. Somebody's got to clean the house. And this is another place where I'm struggling with the kids. I'm trying to get them to do simple things like clean their room and make their bed and, pick up the living room and, pick up the backyard or whatever. Whatever job you think is appropriate for them to do, but make sure that they know that that's their job and don't let them get away with not doing it. Because you're training them to be functional human beings, You're not their pal.
Right. And that's something else that Jordan Peterson, I believe it was Jordan Peterson, he mentioned that being a parent to your child is actually more important than being their friend.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Even if it means tough love sometimes.
That's right. I think Bill Maher, actually, to talk about someone who's completely different, he's just observed how kids, are being raised to be mom and dad's friend. He's like, what the heck? So he kind of shows his old man side a little bit. He's like, these kids nowadays. But it's kind of true. The way that I've seen some kids talk to their parents is, even my own kids, sometimes I can tell I'm screwing up because they start getting familiar, right? Or they start trying to put themselves on equal ground, and you can't let that happen, right? So, resist the urge to be cool.
Yeah.
And, embrace your responsibility.
Yeah. And there will be times when your kids might say, I hate you.
Yeah.
But if what they hate you for is actually for their benefit, then... And
that's one of the sacrifices you make, because Peterson talks about that too. He says at some point your kids are going to say that they hate you. They aren't going to like you in certain moments. And that is one of the sacrifices you actually make, and the pain that you endure in order for this to hopefully turn into a useful human being.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did the right thing, if you made the right responsible choice, and you hear the words, I hate you, you know, it's going to hurt, but, you know, that you're doing something right, you know, and I've heard it, and I've heard it said to my wife, but I let them know that's not acceptable.
Yeah. I think that's part of why Jordan Peterson appeals to a lot of people, especially men, is because, you know, right now in our society, you know, white males are being blamed for everything. You know, they're the reason that there's all these problems in the Middle East. You know, it's colonialism, you know. White men are being ragged on a lot, and it's often coming from white women. Mm-hmm. And so I think that Jordan Peterson appeals to a lot of men because he's saying, you know what? You've got responsibilities. You are worth something. You are valuable. You are needed. Yeah. And as a woman, I'm like, these feminists, these feminazis, they don't speak for me. They actually don't speak for most women. They speak for themselves. There's a small group of very loud women. They're the ones who are being heard. They're the ones who are getting attention. And so people are like, oh, you know, they must be speaking for all women. Not at all. You know, a lot of women, probably most, we understand the value of husbands. We understand the value of fathers. You know, we appreciate when fathers are involved in the lives of their children. Mothers and fathers bring different things to parenthood. Both of them are valuable. Feminazis do not speak for most of us. Yeah. And I think Jordan Peterson, you know, he's a white male, but he's telling other white males, you know what? You have a lot you can contribute, and it's your responsibility to do so.
He gives you a sense of control because he says your suffering is your fault, right? Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like you're being lazy, you're seeking too much pleasure. But you could change these things, right?
So he really brings it back to personal responsibility.
It's always about responsibility, right? Like, you don't have to be that guy. And you also don't have to be the ideal man immediately. You just have to be, and this is one of the 12 rules, right? Just compare yourself today to the person you were yesterday, not someone else today, right?
Yeah, that was chapter 4.
Yeah, that's rule 4. Yeah.
Yeah, rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at what you could be, what you should be, that looks like a very daunting mountain, right? And it is. There are some things that are not possible for you to achieve in the moment, but you could do a little bit better, right? He talks about aiming up. It's like a meme now that he talks about cleaning your room. Right? You like clean your room, make your bed, you know, things like this. Because you're probably in such a terrible state, you're not doing those things. Right? And so it's like, man, you're a F- human being right now. But tomorrow you could be an F, you know? And that is achievable and it's great. It's fantastic, you know what I mean? And the next day you could be an F+. Right? Yeah.
It's something like aim low, but aim upward.
Yeah,
I think that's the way he puts it. You know, if you start off with these big, huge, lofty goals, you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're not going to even make steps to try and make that happen. But if you start small, if you aim low enough that you can easily achieve it, you can build from there.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to have achievable SMART goals that you can achieve, you know, just right now that are a little bit better. And, you know, and he's had so many people, particularly sons and fathers, reconnect their relationship and like talk to him, because this is where some of that disconnect happens, you know. Because like I think as fathers we're always pretty much good at showing when we're disappointed. You know.
Aww.
But we don't always do a great job of showing encouragement where it's needed either. And so, you know, resentment happens when your children don't achieve your goals for them, right? The things that you want for them or wish they could be. And so when they don't achieve that, you show your displeasure, right? And so you can drift apart.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's especially rough if the father wants to live out his dreams through his son.
And I think a lot of dads do that.
And that's not okay.
No.
No, if you weren't able to achieve your own dreams, sorry, too bad. You missed it.
Yeah, life sucks.
Yeah. You get one chance at life.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't achieve something, a lot of that's your fault. But don't try to live your dreams through your children if it's not their dreams.
That's right. So, I think it's good for both parties to absorb this information because it can help them mend their relationship.
Right.
Right. So I think in both of those cases, the appeal is not hearing that you're good enough as you are. I think the appeal to Peterson is like, you're not good enough, and that's so different from what we're used to hearing, right?
You're used to hearing that you are good enough. What I think I like about Peterson's message is that his message is, you can be better, and here's how. Especially when he said that step about, aim low, but aim up. Everyone can benefit from that. Men and women, whether in our personal lives or as parents, we could always do something that's just a little bit. It's easy to achieve, and then you feel good. You're on the upward path.
That's right. So,
yeah.
I think it's refreshing because it's very honest.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to hear in all cases. Like, you need to hear, hey, man, the whole reason you're probably watching this video or reading this book is because there is something about your life that's not satisfying. And guess who caused it? It's you. You
can't help the hand that you were dealt. You can't help where you were born. You can't help who your parents are. But you do have control of where you go and what you do with your life. That's one of the messages that Larry Elder says. The keys to success, both the think tanks on the right and on the left of the political spectrum, both of them say that the key to success, work hard, get an education, meaning finish high school, don't have kids before you're 20. And if you're going to have kids, get married before you have kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key to success. That's what you got to do. And
don't just give up because the system's out to get you, right? So.
Yeah. Now, there is something where the system is definitely against people. And in this case, it's men. When it comes to things like, especially child custody.
Yes.
So, there's the men's rights movement. They have a bunch of different topics that, they're concerned about. But just really quick, I want to cover just a few that have to do specifically with being a father. One of them is divorce. That when it comes to divorce, the courts generally heavily favor the women over the men.
Right.
Even if they're both breadwinners, even if they both contribute to the couple's income, he's still expected to pay child support unless they can work out something. Another one is child custody.
Yeah.
We're talking about how, fathers need to be, involved with their kids. They need to, play, spend time with them. There are many fathers of divorced families who long to be able to do that with their kids. And they actually can't because the courts heavily, heavily favor the mothers when it comes to who gets custody over children. Yeah, it can make a father feel powerless. And that's really rough.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a lot of different topics that the men's rights movement covers. But I just wanted to cover those really quick, just recognizing that, some men out there, some fathers wish they could be more involved in their children's lives. They do the best they can when they have the children. But a lot of times they're at the mercy of the court and, whatever the mother wants to, whatever she feels like giving him. So, if you find yourself in that situation, It's difficult. Just keep trying. Keep doing what you got to do to stay involved in your children's life. Forget your ex, whatever. But do what you can do to stay involved with your children. Prove to her, prove to the courts, prove to your children that you are a good father and that you deserve to be in their life. Don't give up.
And also, I think your children need to see you struggle when things aren't easy, Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with that? Do you throw your stuff across the room? I was embarrassed the other day because I got frustrated about something and I threw my dinner plate.
Oh.
Or no, I was reading Nani's book, right? Nani Darwish's book on my Nook. And I got frustrated at something someone said or something happened. I don't even remember what it was. And I threw the Nook to the couch, right? Because I was frustrated. And my daughter brought it over to me and was like, "Here, Dad, it's not broken." And I was like ashamed of myself, because I lost control in front of my children. And like they should see you struggle, but they should see you maintain. You know what I mean? So it's like, this isn't easy for me, but because I'm a grown up, I deal with my problems in a mature, controlled way.
Yeah.
So they don't want to see you throw your game controller.
No.
So
it also teaches them that that's a way to handle your frustrations.
Yeah.
And, that's not necessarily a good way to handle it. A punching bag, on the other hand, like an actual physical punching bag, that would be nice.
Which I have, by the way. I have
do you?
one here in my office. It's great when you're playing League of Legends.
If you're being trolled by your own teammates, you just go take it out on the punching bag.
Right, you're in your like fifth loss in a row, and you're just
oh man, yeah, I've been on losing streaks.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But they need to see you not fly off the handle.
Yeah.
You fly off the handle when they talk crap about mom. Okay, fine.
Sure.
But not when something trivial isn't working out.
Mm-hmm.
So. Anyway.
Yeah, the context matters.
It does matter. So, I think we did a good job talking about fathers on Father's Day and trying to honor them and talk about what a good father is and isn't. And hopefully I'll be a little bit better, right? I'm going to aim up as a dad going forward. And a lot of this, stuff can apply to mothers easily, right?
Yeah. And mothers and fathers are different. And the benefits that children can get from having a father in the home, it's incredible. Fathers, you're needed. Your children want to spend time with you. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to match the ideal, but just if you're there and if you take an interest in your kids, that does wonders.
That's right.
And again, as a mother, I love seeing my husband take interest in our children.
Yeah.
And, I can't speak for all mothers, but I feel confident saying that a lot of other mothers feel the same way. That it's very nice seeing their husband interested in their children.
That's right.
It's huge. It really is. Especially if your love language happens to be quality time.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if we've mentioned it before in this podcast, but the book, The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah, maybe we ought to cover that one at some point.
I would love to.
That'd be a good one.
I've read it at least twice. It's one of those books that it's good to read over again, a few years apart, just to kind of refresh things in your mind. But he's found 5 different areas that people generally show love and receive love.
Yeah.
Quality time is one of them.
I think that's a must read for pretty much anybody in any level of interest.
Yes. And there's one about couples, specifically, marriage. There's the one that he did about children. So the 5 love languages of children. And it's the same 5 love languages, but it's slightly different for kids. Because, kids need more of a stronger balance of all 5 love languages, but they could still have one primary one.
That's right.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend that for couples and for parents. You'll learn a lot. And especially with the kids one, how you punish them it has different effects based on what their love language is. So, yeah, we'll cover that later. I would love to. But yeah, at the very least, I would say, yeah, read those books. Find out what your love language is and the love language of your spouse and your children, and try and speak that.
Mine is definitely hardcore verbal. I love pretty words, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, mine is quality time.
Yeah.
And so that's why when I see my husband, taking an active interest in our kids, when I can hear them playing downstairs, yeah, that means a lot to me.
Yeah. So this is why I do the dishes, because my wife loves acts of service.
Uh-huh.
I know the dishes are the bane of her existence, and she hates the whole kitchen. And so, and I hate it too, but I think less than her. So
you're willing to make the sacrifice.
So I'm willing to make the sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
Until then, guys, stay free.
And stay skeptical.